All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is analyze the prompt. So I need to read through here. In the following passage from Maria Edgeworth's 1801 novel Belinda, the narrator provides a description of Clarence Hervey, one of the suitors, so I'm thinking that's her boyfriend, of the novel's protagonist, Belinda Portman. Mrs. Stanhope, Belinda's aunt, hopes to improve her niece's social prospects. So that's like climbing the social ladder. And therefore has arranged to have Belinda stay with the fashionable Lady Delacour. Also, I know this is her character motivation. Here. Read the passage carefully, then write an essay in which you analyze Clarence Hervey's complex character. That's the first thing I need to do, as Edgeworth develops it through such literary techniques as tone, point of view, and language. I'm also noticing that language is pretty general. I'm going to need to specify that. So that's the second thing I need to do. So before I move on, I'm just going to break this prompt down into the what. The what is Clarence Hervey's complex character, and the how. The how is what the author does to convey it, so that will be tone, point of view, and language. I'm going to give myself a bullet point for language because I can't just write about that. It needs to be more specific, so that'll help me remember to come back. This is just going to provide me a focus for as I'm reading because I know that's what I need to address. So here I go with the passage. Clarence Hervey might have been more than a pleasant young man. Might have been, so he's not. I'm actually going to write out here, he's not more than a pleasant young man. If he had not been smitten with the desire of being thought superior in everything, and of being the most admired person in all companies. So this is his character flaw. He had been early flattered with the idea that he was a man of genius, and he imagined that as such he was entitled to be imprudent, wild, and eccentric. So he affected singularity in order to establish his claims to genius. My thought here is that he thinks he's smart and one of a, sorry, you can't see that, one of a kind. Affected singularity. He had considerable literary talents, by which he was distinguished at Oxford, but he was so dreadfully afraid of passing for a pedant that when he came into the company of the idle and the ignorant, he pretended to disdain every species of knowledge. He was dreadfully afraid of passing as a know-it-all. He's a good student, but he has this fear of being a know-it-all. So he acts like he doesn't know stuff. His chameleon character seemed to vary in different lights and according to the different situations in which he happened to be placed. He could be all things to all men and to all women. Whoa. That's kind of the point right there. If he has a complex character, the author just said that he can adapt his character to any situation. So I'm going to star that. He was supposed to be a favorite with the fair sex, and of all his various excellencies and defects, there was none on which he valued himself so much as on his gallantry. So the ladies love him. And he's proud of that. He's a charmer. He was not profligate. I don't know what that word means. He had a strong sense of humor and quick feelings of humanity, but he was so easily led, or rather so easily excited by his companions, and his companions were now of such a sort that it was probable he would soon become vicious. Okay, so he's a chameleon character. He becomes like those he's with, and it was probable that he would soon become vicious. He's probably going to change. As to his connection with Lady Delacour, he would have started with horror at the idea of disturbing the peace of a family. But in her family, he said, there was no peace to disturb. He was vain of having it seen by the world that he was distinguished by a lady of her wit and passion. So vain. and he did not think it incumbent on him to be more scrupulous or more attentive to appearances than her ladyship. By Lord Delacour's jealousy he was sometimes provoked, sometimes amused, and sometimes flattered. So again, chameleon, changing. I'll give a delta sign there to show that he's changing. He was constantly of all her ladyship's parties in public and private. Consequently, he saw Belinda almost every day, and every day he saw her with increasing admiration of her beauty and with increasing dread of being taken in to marry a niece of the catch-match-maker, the name by which Mrs. Stanhope was known amongst the men of his acquaintance. So he likes her, but he doesn't want to be caught or set up. Young ladies who have the misfortune to be conducted by these artful dames are always supposed to be partners in all the speculations. So he thinks she's up to it too. Thinks B is in on it, though their names may not appear in the firm. If he had not been prejudiced by the character of her aunt, Mr. Hervey would have thought Belinda an undesigning, unaffective girl, but now he suspected her of artifice in every word, look, and motion, so he's suspicious. Even when he felt himself most charmed by her powers of pleasing, he was most inclined to despise her for what he thought such premature proficiency in scientific coquetry. He had not sufficient resolution to keep beyond the sphere of her attraction, but frequently, when he found himself within it, he cursed his folly and drew back in sudden terror. So he has no real reason to feel this way, but he's afraid to fall for her, even though he kind of is. All right, so the next thing that I need to do, if I look back up here at my focus, tone, point of view, and language, I'm going to quickly go back through and code here where I see those things appearing. So I'll start with tone, and I see that with the word vicious. We're starting to get the tone. I also see it over here where increasing dread. And I think it's probably most prevalent here, terror, folly, the sphere of her attraction. So then I'll think language. Where am I noticing that language is affecting the author's point? Might have been the verb tense here. Fear, chameleon, to become vicious. So it's again kind of diction, horror. Language, vein, dread is language. I'm starting to notice that my language moments, prejudiced, are matching up with the tone. So that may be a point that I can make. Despise is language. And then if I look down here, terror, folly. Okay. So then the last thing is point of view. So if I run back through here, I'll put a point of view here because he's chameleon. And then up here, this is his point of view on things. And then down here where he's suspicious, we're learning that about him. All right, so if I quickly map out what I think my topic sentences could be, what could I say about tone? What could I say about language? What could I say about point of view? I need to consider what order I'd put them in. I'd probably start with tone. And as I think through that, it changes through the passage because it's showing his chameleon character. So I'm going to say changes to show, and then I'm going to put in quotes, chameleon character, kind of progresses through. But then I noticed my language bubbles were close to my tone bubbles. So I'm going to say that the author juxtaposes positive and negative language to reinforce his chameleon character. And then the third part, the point of view, well, first of all, I need to know what it is. It's third person limited. And I think because of the point of view, we get to know Clarence Hervey better than he knows himself, because we're an outsider looking in. So we see him changing in all of those moments. So all of those points, if I need to consider my thesis, go back to the idea that he's a chameleon character and he's changing. That talks about how he's complex. So that'll be my thesis statement. So if I go back here, my thesis statement, I'm going to start out and say, let's see, who's the author? The author is Edgeworth. Maria Edgeworth characterizes Clarence Hervey as a, quote, chameleon character by her changing tone. I don't love that word, but we're going with it. The, what did I say after tone? I said the language. The juxtaposition of positive and negative diction, and the third person limited point of view. I don't love that my thesis talks about my literary devices, but I'm going to go with that for right now. So first thing I would talk about is the chameleon character and her changing tone. I'm going to start with the idea that I'm going to pause for a moment.